you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fascinating episode of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is Jen Peeples. Today is Sunday, November 1st. Happy November, everyone. Hope you all had a good Halloween. Matt is doing some catch-up work this weekend and possibly for a few weekends coming up. So you can expect to see more of me in the near future. If you'd like to whine about how disappointed you are that you have to put up with me instead of Matt, email tv@atheist-community.org and your complaints will get all the attention they deserve, which is to say, none. We are a live call-in public access atheist television show based in Austin, Texas. Thanks to our live internet stream, we take calls from all over the world, but special preference is given to people calling from inside the Austin area, or theists calling to disagree with something that we've said. Now, this is my first show in the new studio, and it looks pretty cool, but I understand from listening to the podcasts of the last two episodes that there have been a few technical glitches, and I don't doubt that we're going to be embarrassed by them again, but not the fault of the fine and brilliant crew back there working to wrestle with new technology that is not part of Matt's apartment. Or as we call it, the spacious Dillahunty International Studios. The Atheist Experience is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. You can find out more by visiting www.atheist-community.org. When you do, be sure to check out the FAQ page for answers to frequently asked questions that we receive on the show. Speaking of the new studio, it's a little weird in here right now. I'm used to just looking at the TV and seeing my face up there, or both of us, but right now it's got this Brady Bunch effect where there's like 16 panels, and one row of them is me, but too small to see. Oh, they're out of phase. Wow.
Yeah, there's a delay.
Yeah, this makes great TV and even better podcasts pointing out weird technical features that the audience can't see. Anyway, so if I get distracted for a moment, that might be why. So you can visit the website. You can also find there audio and video clips from past episodes, or full audio and video, and links to clips. If you click on Archive, then you'll find a list of programs that includes links to both audio and video downloads, and a rapidly updated audio podcast. You can catch fan-selected clips of the Atheist Experience on YouTube, and you can also see full episodes of the show at blip.tv, or you can subscribe to the audio podcast. In addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. You can visit www.nonprofitsradio.com, that's P-R-O-P-H-E-T-S, for more information. Now, the next episode, I believe, is scheduled to air next week. 2 weeks from now, on Saturday, November 12th. But I could be very mistaken about that. So just keep posted on the website or something. Weekly meetings for the Atheist Community of Austin are hosted at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road from 11:30 to 1. Every Sunday except for the first Sunday of the month, when we host our lecture series at the Austin History Center, located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe. There was a lecture yesterday, if everything went according to plan, by Don Moore from the Final Exit Network. And were you there?
No, I didn't make it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Me neither. The next lecture should be held on December 16th, but the topic and the speaker are yet to be announced. If you can't make it to the morning meetings, you can always join us for dinner right after this very program, beginning at around 6:30 every Sunday. Most of the people involved with the production of the Atheist Experience will once again head down to the excellent and enjoyable Threadgill's restaurant at 301 West Riverside Drive in South Austin. That's a great opportunity to meet everybody who's involved with the show. And finally, the ACA also hosts an Atheist Happy Hour every Thursday, beginning at around 7 p.m. at the Dog and Duck Pub, located at the corner of 17th and Guadalupe. If you'd like to get in touch with us but don't feel like calling in, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. Now, of course, we get far more calls than the show can process, and as I said, priority will be given to sincere callers who disagree with us because, you know, that's what makes the show fun. If you just want to get in touch to praise our work, we love to hear from you, but email is the best way to do that. Lots of people read messages to the email address, and many of them are dedicated to replying, so you get a pretty good chance of a personal response if you email us. Be sure to check out the unofficial show blog at atheistexperience.blogspot.com and the comprehensive counter-apologetics wiki at ironchariots.org. And that's all for the announcements. So, do they still do the pause bar thing for people watching the video? There it is.
There we go.
Yay.
Yeah.
You're not on camera.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do it anyway.
Well, with the delay, you never know.
Yeah, my arms were still up in the air. But anyway. Well, so, did you go trick-or-treating?
I didn't. You know,
Oh.
my son, he's really into handing out candy. So,
Oh, okay.
so he dresses up in his costume and he greets people at the door and says, "Welcome to Halloween."
What was his costume?
Batman.
Okay. Ben was Iron Man, so if we had gotten them in together, we could have seen who actually would win in a fight.
Oh, well, I think Ben's got about, 3 years on him.
Well,
so,
yeah, that's true. Plus, Iron Man's got, like, those shooter things, but...
Yeah.
But,
yeah, we had lots of fun.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
all right, so you
Um,
had something you wanted to talk about today?
Well, I've had an interesting few weeks. I started a new job, which is actually dragging me all the way down to San Antonio. And people who saw that on my Facebook, some of them said, you know, does that mean that you're not going to be, that you're going to cut back your show activities? And my answer for now is absolutely not. Last week, I got invited to a wedding with my girlfriend's family, and had a great time. Also had an interesting discussion with some relatives who don't agree with the purpose of the show, about the show being offensive.
Okay, so
and
what's offensive?
what's offensive? You know, I'm not going to talk directly about our conversation with them because I know that they're aware of the show, and I think that's rude. But I do want to sort of, you know, discuss the general notion of how it's offensive to some people. I think my understanding from the conversation was basically that it's not right to directly go after people's religious beliefs and try to take away their faiths. And in some sense, I think that it's impossible to avoid being offensive doing the kind of show we do, because people are naturally ready to take offense when their religion is challenged in some way.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be offensive on the show.
Yeah, that's
it's not our intent. But there's a kind of, oh no, that's even worse. They just changed the TV, so now I can see myself perfectly well, but there's still a long delay.
4 seconds ago.
Please don't do that.
no.
Thank you very much.
Election day polling places. That's great.
Oh, great. Okay, so I'm trying not to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But basically, you know, we're not here to try to convert anybody, first of all. I mean, you know, we're not an evangelism show. I've talked in the past about atheist evangelism and how I kind of enjoy it. But what we're here for is two things. One is, you know, promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state, which is another way of saying outreach, trying to you know, bring more atheists to to benefit from the social activities of the atheist community of Austin. And the other is, oh boy, people who talk about being offended at their religion being challenged do not hesitate in return to say the most horrible things about other religions and atheism, which is not a religion, but about people's lack of religion. Somebody quoted to me, "The fool hath said in his heart there is no God," which I'm used to because it's a giant freaking cliche. But it's like, huh, you're telling me that you are insulted by my discussing your religion in a critical way, but you are here telling me that I'm a fool to my face. Interesting. So, I don't know, basically all I want to say is, at some point you have to, I mean, I think it's right and reasonable to have a discussion about people's conception of reality, because, I mean, you know, there's a long tradition of philosophers who actually want to talk about that position, because, I mean, you know, people have different opinions, and I think that hiding from each other's opinions and just not discussing it is not a good way to interact with each other. I mean, you know, I suppose one solution would be if everyone would agree to suddenly have the same opinion and all agree with each other, which I'm sure Christians would prefer. But, you know, that hasn't been happening in a couple, you know, 10,000 years of recorded human history. And I don't see it happening now. So, I mean, I think that actually communicating about differences of opinion in the meantime is kind of, you know, a necessary stopgap. Do you ever offend anybody?
I'm sure I do. I think it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you just sit down and say nothing.
Right. Which some people would also like.
Well, yeah. And you know, I would say that for every person who emails us telling us how much we've offended them by, you know, challenging them to support their beliefs through logic and reason, we probably get 10 emails from atheists who say, you know, thank you for what you're doing.
Right.
You know, I thought I was the only one.
A lot of email from people who are like embarrassed to, or I mean, you know, uncomfortable with the notion they don't believe in God. Their whole families are religious. Most of the people they know are religious, and you know, people being social creatures want to sit down and discuss what they think. Yeah. And yet, people who are in that kind of situation, which you and I are not, can get frustrated because they don't feel like they have an outlet. They don't have anyone to talk to about what they think. And so a lot of people find it very liberating when they realize, oh, there's people out here who not only think the way I think, but are willing to intellectually defend what I think.
Right.
And I don't expect everyone who watches the show to agree with us all the time. I mean, people who mostly agree with us even should not be expected to just take what we say here on the show and treat it as gospel, so to speak. But it feels good to me to have an opportunity to sit down and talk about this stuff and invite the disagreement, and invite the disagreement from other atheists as well as theists who might be watching and just be offended at the notion that we're challenging them.
Yeah.
So,
well, and one of the things is, you know, I don't want to live in an echo chamber where the only views that I ever hear are things I already agree with. I'd much rather have my views challenged from time to time, and have to come up with a way of defending them
Right.
on my own. And so I try to read something that I know I'm going to disagree with at least a couple of times a week, because I think that, sometimes I change my mind about things. I get new information, or I find an argument particularly compelling. But, if you live in an echo chamber and you don't expose yourself to other views, then, you kind of get stagnant. And
That's right. I mean, Matt always liked to say, I would like to have as many true beliefs and as few false beliefs
Right.
as possible. And I suppose one way to feel like you've arrived there is to just tune out everyone who disagrees with you.
Yeah.
And that way you can only talk to people who reinforce what you already think. And then you can feel like, hey, I'm right about everything. But when it comes to being right and wrong, there are, in many cases, there are matters of opinion, but there are also matters of fact, where whether you're right or not depends on how well your belief actually sort of syncs up to the real world.
Right.
And if you don't want to just be stuck with a rigid set of beliefs and not know when the corresponding, when the corresponding fact may disagree with you, that's fine for some people. But I think that the only way to actually weed out the problems that you have with your beliefs is to come up with people who disagree and see how reasonable they can be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wind up changing your mind, I'd say that that's a good thing, because it means that you probably realized you were wrong about something, and therefore now you're probably right.
Well, and this gets back to, we got an email not that long ago from a guy who said, hey, it was something to the effect of, don't say you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I said, no. If you don't know, if you really don't know, then the answer is, I don't know. And my view on this, and this is what I responded to him, was that I think that claiming that you know something when in fact you don't is a character flaw.
Right.
But in some religions, that's viewed as a sign of virtue.
Yeah.
That you can claim knowledge that you cannot possibly have.
Yeah, I don't like that kind of arrogant, unwarranted certainty
Yeah.
that comes with saying you know things all the time.
Yeah.
I try as hard as I can to know everything.
Yeah.
I like to read a little bit about all kinds of subjects. Some of them are less boring to me than others. But I want to be at a point where I can offer an opinion that is informed by some kind of background reading from somebody who really knows what they're talking about. But there's a lot of stuff I don't know. There's even a lot of stuff that scientists or the general body of smart people know about, but I just haven't brushed up on it enough.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to be honest about that.
Well, yeah, and we get emails sometimes from theists who ask us, well, without God, what's your purpose in life? And one of the things that gets me up in the morning is the fact that I don't know everything. That there's always something new I can learn, and I think that's what makes life interesting, at least for me. To have this unwarranted certainty about things because it's written in a book of Bronze Age myths, to me that makes life pretty boring.
Right.
And dark and scary and all kinds of things. So.
Well, it is a kind of a dark and scary book in a lot of places.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be. I can think of somebody writing a better book that says this is how you should think, but it would still be like a static snapshot of in time, which doesn't take advantage of expanding human knowledge. And, when you look at the actual Bible, it very much looks like a snapshot of time where they didn't realize a lot of things that were wrong with the way they were thinking.
Right.
Like, to take our favorite example, slavery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that kind of gets me to, I wanted to talk a little bit about an email we got from a theist not that long ago. And Tracy actually had a pretty lengthy conversation with her. Don't want to give her name out on air, so I'll just call her M. Okay, M wrote to us with, I forget how many different forms of proof of God's existence, including Bible codes. And so she was using you remember this email exchange. And
No, but I saw the very long post Tracy put on the Atheist Experience
yeah,
blog
Tracy had an
about
excellent
Bible
post.
codes.
Well, this same individual sent us an email. It turns out she's also an anti-vaxxer. So, in case you didn't know, the H1N1 flu vaccine is an evil plot by the Obama administration to poison your mind and, I guess, make you vote Democrat or something like that. I don't know.
Wow, they can do that now?
I know. It's
That's
like,
pretty
wow.
cool.
You know? But anyway, so she brought up this one case that's been, it hasn't even actually made it into the mainstream press, but it's a case of this woman named Desiree Jennings, and I can put her name out there because it's already out there. And supposedly she developed this neurological condition called dystonia as a result of a flu shot. And that's what the claim is. And so the thing I can tell you about that, I'm not an expert in dystonia or anything like that, but what I can tell you is, having looked this up, if she got that from a flu shot, she would be the only one. That has never been documented in any other case as a side effect of a flu shot. But it gets really interesting when you look at the timeline of this case, because they're pinning this on the flu shot, and by implication the H1N1 vaccine, which of course is not available yet except for certain high-risk individuals. But here's the timeline. She received a flu shot on August 23rd. Okay, the only flu vaccine that was available on August 23rd of this year was the seasonal flu vaccine. So she didn't get the H1N1 flu. About 10 days later, on or about September 2nd, she developed the flu. Now, it's too early in the northern hemisphere or the northern, yeah, I guess the northern hemisphere for seasonal flu. So the circulating strain of flu in this area right now is H1N1. So she got a seasonal flu vaccine, and 10 days later she developed the flu, which was H1N1, the thing she was not vaccinated for.
Okay.
So the anti-vaxxers are saying, see, it doesn't work. Well, she wasn't vaccinated for that strain. So
in other words, they said they would immunize her, and yet she was not immune to all diseases.
Exactly.
Clearly that thing does
Yes.
not work as advertised.
And so then she returned to work on September 8th, so about 6 days after she first came down with the flu, which is about right. If you look at what people are saying about H1N1, that's about the course of the disease. So she went back to work. She was still extremely fatigued. Again, still, a common symptom of the flu. She passed out at work, so she left work, passed out again at home. Later, she went to an urgent care clinic where, according to the report, she had convulsions. Okay, convulsions also could be another word for seizure. Okay, and then she was transferred to a hospital where she spent 3 days. Okay, so the timeline here is that she got the flu shot. 10 days later, she comes down with the flu. 6 days later, she goes back to work. Then she apparently gets much worse, which is the warning sign that they tell you about H1N1. If you seem to get better and then you suddenly get much worse, go to a hospital because you might be having some additional problems. So she, she's developed this condition, this neurological condition at some point in there, and it's not clear exactly when these symptoms manifested. But in any case, if you look up this condition, dystonia, one of the risk factors for it is a seizure disorder, which, hers could have been caused by the flu. But the flu is also known to cause neurological side effects. That's pretty well documented. So the big deal is that it was not the flu shot that was the likely cause of any of the problems that she's having now. Right. The more likely cause is that it was, in fact, the flu. And if she had been vaccinated for H1N1, she probably would not have
I see.
suffered.
Is she
these
all right?
consequences.
I mean, what's her prognosis now? Is she
Well,
likely to recover?
She's her condition right now is it's still pretty early in there, so it's not really possible to know with any certainty what her condition's going to be like a year from now or even 6 months from now. There's not any real cure, and so most of the treatment for this is aimed at symptomatic treatment and improving, people's ability to function.
Right. Well,
So-
I mean, this is a pretty typical reasoning error, which is that people in general are not good at calculating odds.
Right.
And so you hear about one big high-profile story, and of course, single big high-profile stories are all over the place now because we got international cable news and the internet.
Yeah.
And so anything that happens that's even slightly interesting is going to become instant national news. And then, people, because our brains sort of developed to calculate the odds in small communities, are going to be like, wow, I've been hearing all these stories that have been collected by Bill Maher or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
About people who got the flu shot and then got sick. When in reality what's going on is people get, lots of people get flu shots, lots of people get sick. There's an intersection between those two. And the intersection may actually be smaller than the people who are getting sick without the flu shot, but then you notice them more. And that's data mining fallacies.
Yeah. But I mean, the best available evidence we have for H1N1 right now, which is, from CDC, is that it's going to be highly effective against H1N1, and that's because the antigen match is really, really good for H1N1 versus seasonal flu, where it's a best guess at what strains will be circulating during the flu season. So overall estimates is that it comes in at about 80% effective at preventing flu, and that varies from somewhere in the 50% range up to over 90%, depending on the year and how good they get the antigen match. But H1N1 is going to be pretty good because it is a good match. So anyway, that was our anti-vax emailer, and it was interesting. I had a conversation in the chat room a couple of weeks ago with a guy who was saying he wasn't going to get the flu shot because he I forget what his reasoning was, but essentially he was refusing the flu shot, and not because he can't take the flu shot, but just because of some other reason. So I actually called him a parasite, and I stand by that, by the way. Because for every person who can take the flu shot and who does not take the flu shot, you become a potential vector to transmit the disease to someone else. And you may transmit the disease to someone who, for medical reasons, cannot take the flu shot. And if that person gets sick and dies, then you are indirectly responsible for causing the death of another human being, simply because you refused to take a very safe and effective vaccine.
Right.
And someone else in the chat room said, well, what do you think should happen to people who don't take the flu shot? And I'm not really sure where that was going, but I can guess that it was that, somehow the government should intervene and force them. And,
Yeah, that would be a huge can of worms there.
Yeah, it's like, okay, first
yeah,
of all, it's my opinion that this guy is a parasite, okay?
Yeah.
And what makes anybody think I need the government to validate my opinion of the guy that he's a parasite? Oh, and a moron.
Right. What we need is more public consciousness raising, like
Right.
calling these people morons.
Yes.
So that they realize that they're being morons.
So yes, so what should happen to you if you don't take the flu shot and you don't have a medical reason for avoiding it? You should be called out as a parasite and a moron.
Yeah,
So, and that's my opinion.
all for it. And I agree with that opinion.
Okay. Well, do we want to get to some callers here?
We got a few callers lined up,
Okay.
and it looks like we're going to start with Brian from Buda, Texas. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Fine.
All right.
Okay, I've been watching out for a long time. And I'm the only atheist in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
I come from... I hear my echo, sorry, I can't hear really good. I hear my echo.
Is your TV on?
Huh?
Is your TV on?
No, I live in Beta. I don't have y'all's channel.
Oh,
Okay.
It's a control room issue. I guess try to work around it.
Okay. Okay. Okay, like I said, I'm an atheist in my family. And like my father's a preacher about this church, and like they always give me like ridicule, saying, "Oh, you're not my son because you're an atheist, and you're gonna go to hell." And like I go through so much pressure and pain because of what they tell me. But one thing I don't understand, I try to believe in God, but then I can't. Is it possible to believe in God but not believe in everything in the Bible?
Well, lots of people do it.
Yeah.
Only 1/3. I mean, most people on Earth are theists of some sort, but only 1/3 of the people on Earth are Christians. So, I mean, that leaves all the other religions.
And the Christians don't all agree on what's actually literally true in the Bible.
Right. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. We don't believe in any of those gods, with the possible exception of defining God down to some very specific claim that doesn't involve any supernatural powers, which makes the word kind of meaningless. But yeah, it's certainly possible to. I mean, you could right now make up your own definition of a god and say, "This is what my God is like," and believe in that. And I know because lots of people do it, apparently. Yeah. We get people calling all the time who say, "I believe in God, but my God, is nothing like that guy in the Bible."
Yeah, I just think of the universe as God.
Right,
yeah, like
that.
Oh,
That's
great.
what I think too, yeah.
Well, I think the universe is the universe.
Exactly.
We have a perfectly good definition for the universe.
Exactly.
So.
And then I have another question, one more question.
Okay.
Okay, it says the Bible was written 2,000 years ago. I don't understand how someone would know, like, all the prophecies. Like, I don't understand how they would make it up. Like, all the prophecy about microchips, one currency, and it's kind of happening now. I don't understand how someone can just make it up.
Can you, excuse me, wait a minute. Can you find the passage in the Bible that refers to microchips?
Microchips.
Microchips.
My dad seems to know it. I don't know it.
Okay.
Okay, well, then in that case, I suggest you actually find the part that they say is referring to microchips and see how close it came to actually having anything whatsoever to do with microchips. Because, I mean, they like to exaggerate these claims of how perfect the Bible is. Perfect example, a Muslim wrote to us this week. Did you read this exchange?
I think I'm behind
I'm
on
sorry.
emails.
It wasn't a Muslim. It was a person who was talking to a Muslim, and the Muslim claimed that the Quran perfectly calculated the speed of light.
Oh, I've heard this one before.
Yeah. Okay. And their justification was this one passage that said that angels go for 100 of what you count, or something like that. And then they said, well, clearly what you count is because people would count the times the moon goes around. And so if the moon goes around 100 times, then it comes out to this very large number for the moon to travel for 100 years. And if you calculate that, it's perfectly what the speed of light is, down to like 0.1%. And then it turns out they massively fudged the numbers to get it within that 0.1%. And second of all, that passage didn't say anything about the moon. They just cherry-picked. I mean, they read this extremely vague passage which said nothing about anything, and then, I imagine they went through a bunch of possible things that it could have been before settling on, oh, moon gets us pretty close to this speed of light thing, which sounds really science-y, and so, and so we can say that this is an incredible prophecy, but when you start breaking it down, it's a crappy prophecy. Yeah. So I'd really so before you go worrying about how the Bible predicted microchips, I really think you should read for yourself the parts that actually talk about microchips, supposedly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and a lot of Christians, they like to use the book of Daniel as, part of their prophecy. And anytime you go back to the Old Testament, as a Christian, you got to kind of step out of this whole Christian mindset and understand this is a Jewish text. Okay, there weren't any Christians around when that was written. So we just got your echo here in the studio, by the way. We just got your echo in the studio here. That was really weird. But, there weren't any Christians around when the book of Daniel was written. And the interesting thing about that is if you talk to a rabbi, you'll find out they don't regard Daniel as prophetic. So it's interesting that the Christians have decided this is a prophetic book, but the Jews, who actually own the text, don't agree.
Right, and from an actual literary standpoint, the things that they say are prophecies are like stuff in the past tense.
Right.
That's that describes events that already happened. But they go through and they grab verses and they say, "Oh, that's just like the thing that we say happened to Jesus later in the New Testament."
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's not terribly impressive.
Okay.
David Jesus.
Mom,
What?
oh, that was my mom in the background. She's noisy.
Oh, whoop! I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
My crank sense went off, and I think I was wrong.
Uh-oh, yeah.
But I have an itchy trigger finger. I'm sorry. Call back.
Yeah, you could call.
I feel bad about that.
Oh, well.
It's just, we're back in the studio for the first day, and I know that we get lots of local people who call and, and pretend to have a reasonable conversation for a while and then say something off the wall. And I don't think that was one of those. So sorry, Brian.
Yeah, you can call back, Brian. Okay.
Okay. Maybe
So-
we'll have better luck with Mike in Austin.
All right, let's talk to Mike.
Mike, are you there?
First, I need to clarify that atheists can't morally. They can even be people of integrity.
Wait.
That isn't the issue.
Hello?
Hello?
Having good morals
Wait a
doesn't
minute.
mean you have a
Who?
good moral standard.
Hello? Wait.
One atheist
Can you
good
hear
morals
me?
might only be coincidental,
Hello?
But the true
Are you
objective morality
are you playing a
where
recording?
atheist isn't.
I think it's a recording.
Objective morals are
Okay.
those.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Mike, you can't talk to us on your own? You got to record your response? Come on, guy.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, Nicholas. Hold on, Nicholas. We're here to have a conversation,
Yeah.
okay? We're not hanging up on anybody because they have beliefs that disagree with us, but we would like you to be ready to actually present your point of view, not recite somebody else's. Okay. Nicholas.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to follow that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you could just start talking and ignore everything I say.
I'm calling from Skype, so I was highly tempted to play you through my computer so you could hear a recording instead of my live voice. But I'm not going to do that.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, just to give you a little background on my question, I'm part of an atheist free thinkers agnostic group, Theology, and one of the group leaders was trying to give a definition of religion, and I felt it was very nebulous, sort of didn't really capture what religion was, thinking about rituals and dogma, but he didn't really get to the heart of what I feel defines religion. And so it got me thinking about how I define and what isn't religion. And I thought about deism, whether or not deism is a religion or if it's just a philosophy. But if it is just a philosophy, it seems to be somewhat separate from other philosophies that may not rely on a natural
Okay.
argument.
Okay, that's a little hard to follow because, I don't
Yeah.
know, the Skype was really good in Matt's apartment, but somehow
Yeah,
you bring it
it's
here and
breaking
it's
up.
very, very choppy. But as far as what the right definition of religion is, I think that the word is so vague, is
Yeah.
so hard to pin down. It means different things to a lot of different people, that it's often not worth getting in an argument over who's got the right definition of religion. I think it's better to nail down a meaning and then talk about what that meaning implies. Like, for instance, if somebody wants to say atheism is a religion, which they often do, my reaction is, what do you mean by religion? And when they explain their definition of religion, I say, okay, by that definition, atheism is a religion, but so
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. I think when I think of religion and what that actually means, you know, there's a couple of concepts here. One is theism, and theism is just, do you believe that a God exists or not? Uh-oh. And if the answer is yes, then you're a theist. And if the answer is no, then you're an atheist, okay? And then when you talk about religion, that's sort of like, what flavor is your theism?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, religion indicates not only belief in a God, but also an organized system of worship of those gods, a
Right.
set of rituals, something surrounding the the belief in God. And so in that sense, it would be hard to describe deism as a religion, because deism explicitly said there was a God
Right.
who created the universe, but now he's gone, and there's nothing you can do to really communicate with it or get any signals from it.
Right.
And so, you know, in that situation, having a religion around it would be kind of pointless, because there's nothing that religion
Yeah.
could actually do. Similarly, that's one of the reasons I don't really think atheism is a religion, by my definition at least, because if there's one thing atheists are not, it's organized.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we had an email just this weekend, and somebody said, you know, what's your consensus opinion on free will? And Jeff D answered and said, well, there isn't a consensus.
Right.
Here's what I think. And he proceeded to talk about that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's pretty much how it is for almost any question you'd have. We have people who agree, you know, with each other and everything, but I wouldn't say that we have a lot of consensus opinions on very much, except for things regarding separation of church and state and I guess the value of what we're doing here.
And there's stuff that a lot of us like to do together, like, you know, go out to Threadgill's in South Austin
Exactly,
at 6:30
after the
p.m. after
show.
the show and hang out and have good conversations and you know, and talk and enjoy ourselves. But not everybody comes to that. I mean, likewise, there are some people who go out drinking, and I never do.
Yeah, at the Dog and Duck at
yeah.
7 p.m. on Thursdays.
Yeah, I've been there one time.
Yeah.
We used to have a game night, and there have been occasions where a big movie release came up, like Religulous or Jesus Camp or The Passion of the Christ. That was fun.
Yeah.
And we all got together in a big group, and we went, and you know, afterwards we went out for coffee and we talked about it. But you know, I've actually had a fairly weird charge leveled against the atheist community of Austin recently, that it is a cult.
Really?
And, yes, seriously. And
Well, you know, my
know.
significant other teases me about that. She says, "Oh, you're going to
really?
go hang out with your cult friends."
oh, shit, you get it too.
Yeah, it's funny. And now, so my son has picked that phrase up. So now, when I get
Oh, boy.
to leave on Sundays, he's like, "Mom, you going to have dinner with your cult friends?" Like, yeah.
Oh boy. But I mean, you know, I can't see a real cult joking about being a cult.
No.
Although I suppose it's possible, and I suppose that if the person who said I was a cult heard me saying that, they would say, "Oh, you're just joking about it to deflect suspicion."
Yeah. Well, actually, we're going to have an objective ruling today, because
Yes.
my mother is in the studio audience today. And she is to report back to my significant other whether or not she thinks we're a cult. So.
Oh, okay. Well, it's okay. If she comes out with the wrong answer, then we will just jump her and tie her up and lock her in a dark room
Yeah,
somewhere.
there.
But you know, feel free to say whatever you want. It looks like Brian called back.
Yeah.
So, Brian, I apologize again for hanging up on you. Are you there?
Yeah, did I hang up on me though?
Yes, but it was an accident.
Okay, because my mom's in the background like screaming, so I have to go. I'm outside now because it's going crazy in the house.
Okay.
Well,
I think she
saying in
was.
the background,
Yes.
She was like, okay, why would they make up Abraham, Isaac? Do you think that's just a made-up belief? Like, I don't understand why someone would do that. She's all screaming in the background. So that was her question.
People have made up all kinds of stories. I mean, you know, also from the same era, we have the Iliad and the Odyssey and like Gilgamesh. I mean,
Right.
do people make those things up? Those are just as weird as the Bible.
Yeah. And the thing about that is that there's actually, there are ways of validating whether or not the stories that are in the Bible actually occurred. I mean, you can go back and look for confirming evidence through other sources. For example, there are some cultures that kept pretty good records. And the Egyptians actually were one of those civilizations that kept really good records. And so when you're talking about stories like, for example, the Exodus, you can go back and look at Egyptian records and find out if this large number of people passed through Egypt's borders when they're supposed to have done it. And
you would think that the Egyptians would notice that little detail when all their soldiers walked into the middle of a separated ocean, and then it crashed down and killed a bunch of them. You would think that there would be a little notation about that. Oh crap, lost 20,000 soldiers today.
Yeah, and so, you know, you've got a culture that meticulously records nomadic, herdsmen coming in to water their herds in their territory that, a band of 20, came in and watered at this watering hole or whatever. But they don't notice these thousands of people leaving, en masse, and all this other stuff that was supposed to have happened along with it. So we have the Egyptian records clearly say this didn't happen, because they certainly would have recorded that. Not only that, but there's no archaeological evidence to support the idea that they camped out in this wilderness for 40 years.
When you come right down to it, the Bible turns out to be a very regional-centered book. I mean, it's all taking place in this one little part of the Middle East, and then they make these vast claims like, and there was a big flood that killed everybody on Earth except for 8 people.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because people have gone through and dated when the flood was supposed to happen, something like 2000 something BC, and so during that time when supposedly a flood killed everybody in the world except for 8 people, there was a flourishing dynasty going on in China at the same time, which didn't get mentioned. And 100 years after the flood was when the pyramids were built. So it's like, okay, they must have reproduced pretty fast to get all those workers.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm very ignorant on the Bible because I haven't read it. I can't argue any cases because I haven't read it.
Well, you want some advice?
Huh?
You want some advice? Read it. Read it. I think there is nothing better an atheist can do than read the Bible and really understand. And if the Bible is too dry for you to read by itself, you can go to skepticsannotatedbible.com and get funny little comments in the margins.
Yeah, that's
or
very entertaining.
There's this new comic book coming out by R. Crumb.
Oh yeah.
Who's like a famous comic author and has just like taken the book of Genesis and just written the whole thing, entirely unabridged and illustrated it. But I mean, illustrated it thoroughly, like all the really graphic parts and all the horrible violence and all the, all the sexy stuff, drawn out very explicitly. And I hear it's really interesting. So you might want to look that up. That's brand new.
Like I said, one thing that made me become atheist is when I was in high school, I knew a lot of gay people, and when I was a Christian, I would tell them, you're going to hell, you're wrong, you chose to do it, like you're going to hell. And then when I started getting knowledge, studying people's pattern, I realized it's not a choice. They were born like that. I don't think God's going to set himself for being born like that. That's one thing that made me contradict the Bible and wonder a lot. That's the one thing about homosexuality that made me wonder. Do you agree?
Of course.
Yeah.
Because I feel like gay people are nice people. They want to do what they do. They cannot help what they're trying to do, and they get ridiculed by Christians and all stuff. I think it's wrong. I think it's very wrong to do that.
Nor should they try to help what they can do, because I mean, if they're involved in something that they enjoy, which is not hurting anyone, then whether it's a choice or not, there's no reason they should stop.
Right. Yeah, I mean, to the extent that it is a choice, it's a choice I have an absolute right to make.
Mm-hmm. So you believe it is a choice, though?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think for some people they're born gay. Some people, I don't know. I think I've known a few women that probably did choose to be in a relationship with a woman. But as I
Or
said,
maybe they're just bisexual.
I think
and
that-
that's
yeah.
and that's legitimate too.
I mean, I think there are people who fall way at the straight end of the spectrum and way at the gay end of the spectrum, and there are people all in between who actually can, choose either way. And I
Yeah.
think it's fine no matter what.
I agree, sir.
Good.
Okay.
I'm
Great.
open-minded.
Anything else?
Great.
One more thing. Okay. Like I said, I watch all the time on YouTube because I don't have your channel, and I think you're great. And in my opinion, the reason why I believe people believe in God is because they need something to believe in too, and they can't accept that when they die, it's just they died. Like mom's like, oh, I want to see my grandma when I'm in heaven. I'm like, Mom, I hope that is true, but it's probably not. Like they need something to look up. That's what my belief in it.
Yeah, and to get back to what I said earlier, if somebody has a belief that makes them feel good and you tell them it's not true, they can't help being offended. Of course they feel like you're trying to take something away from them.
Yeah.
But, it depends on whether feeling good or knowing the truth is more important to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
All right.
All right,
Thanks
thank
for the
you
call.
for calling both
Bye-bye.
times.
Yes. Thanks for
Bye.
calling back. Bye. Yeah, I guess we need to talk to Matt.
Next we have,
Yeah,
of
let's-
course, Matt. Yes. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Matt.
Hey guys,
Hey.
I'm enjoying my day off and watching you on TV.
Good.
And wow, I wanted to get in partly because I want to hear this echo problem so I can describe it to Frank next week. It's pretty bad.
Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, my TV's off and I can hear it. The big thing is it's nice to see that most everything's working and you guys are doing a great job. But when Brian called and his mom wanted to ask a question in the background, you guys did a good job of responding to it with specifics. But I heard kind of another question implied, which is she finds it absurd to think that somebody would make up Abraham, Moses, etc. And this is something similar to what we hear with the claim that, well, do you think all of the New Testament authors were lying, or that, they just invented all of these people and stories? Mm-hmm. There's a difference between somebody believed something happened and something actually happened.
Right.
Right.
And no one, not me, and I don't know anybody else in the atheist community, is saying, we don't believe the story because we think they lied and made it all up. Instead, we don't believe the story because there's insufficient evidence to believe the story.
Right.
There's no need to assert that lies were told or fictions were invented. It's much simpler to just say, people make mistakes, and people sincerely believe things that are wrong and build belief systems on it. And every Christian out there thinks that every other religion has done exactly that.
Absolutely. I mean, there are all kinds of cults going on, like the Heaven's Gate cult, where they believed that if they all killed themselves at a certain time, then they would get to take a ride on a comet.
Yeah.
And I think nobody could accuse those people of not being sincere in their beliefs. Nobody could say they were just making up a story for kicks.
Yeah. Well, have a good show. Put me on hold and kick me back to the studio so I can tell them about this reverb.
All right, you got it. Bye.
Boy.
So see, everybody that has been emailing us and tweeting and all this stuff about all our problems in the studio.
Yeah.
We are trying to work this out, okay?
We are.
Thank you, but hey, we're working on it.
Yep, and that's why Martin had to put up a blog post to let everybody know that we're aware and you can stop telling us now.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I just lost the. Wait a minute. Come back. Come
Got
back.
him.
You've got it, right?
Lee
Lee.
in Tennessee.
Lee in Tennessee. How are you? I like having two computers.
Doing fine,
Yeah.
Jen and Russell. How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing just fine. I had a question about atheist parenting. I understand that both of you guys are atheist parents.
Yeah, you
That's
picked
correct.
a good day to call.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. I grew up in a very religious family, and they don't really understand how I can even be atheist And I was just wondering if you guys had any recommendations for that, because, I mean, I'm kind of at my wit's end on how to respond to them at this point.
So the question isn't about how to be an atheist parent, it's how to deal with your parents disapproving of your being an atheist parent?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding you because of the echo.
Yeah, we've got an echo here. So is the question about what to do about your family's disapproval?
Right. I mean, they think that I'm responsible for sending my children straight to hell.
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna think that.
Yeah, there's not much you can do about what they think.
Well, yeah.
How close do they live?
Well, I've actually moved, not just extremely far away from them, but they're probably about 40 miles away from me whenever we go visit. Like I said, I've brought up in an extremely religious situation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If I to give you background, if I told a lie, like a little white lie, try to cover my butt when I did something wrong when I was a kid, I had to write off Bible verses. I mean, it was very strict.
Okay.
Well, here's what you tell them. I could parent like you, but then my kids would wind up like me. And you don't want that, do you? I don't know what else to say. I mean, your parents will probably always disapprove of you unless you turn them into atheists, and I don't expect that to happen. So all you can do is just parent the way you think is right, and say you're sorry that they're not happy with it.
Yeah.
Well, and I would also say that you would be within your rights as a parent to insist that your relatives respect your decisions as a parent about how you bring up your kids. I mean, they wouldn't allow anyone else to interfere in how they raised you, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. So it's reasonable for you to expect the same consideration with how you're raising your child.
Right. But they don't understand how my kids are so well behaved. I mean, they think that I abuse them on a regular basis, which I don't at all. I talk reason and understanding.
The way your
Right.
kids behave is the best evidence to back up your methods. I mean, I think you should take this as a mandate to raise good and well-behaved kids, and they won't always be, trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know that. I mean, I have a 6, 7, and 9-year-old. I mean, I do get that.
So you know all about parenting in
Yeah,
public
right.
sometimes.
So,
Yeah, but I mean, if they wind up being good kids and good in school and not big jerks, then your parents will just be astounded and not understand how you pulled it off. And I guess that's the best you can hope for.
Well, I did have one more question.
Okay.
If, like I said, I live in a very religious community, and it seems like everyone around here is some sort of Christian denomination, and even the children my kids play with, they can't really do anything outside of school with friends because it's all, church involved or, something along the lines of that. They literally have no friends because, and they kind of blame us because all these kids want to take them to church with them, and I'm totally against that.
Have you considered letting them?
I'm sorry?
Have you considered letting them go? I mean, what do you expect to happen? That they'll subvert all the years of education that you've given them and turn them theists in a day?
Well, I know when I was a kid, my grandfather was a preacher, so that's the church I attended, and
Yeah.
I know that they actually were. What is that was really screwing me up?
Yeah.
I know that when I was a child, I was taught straight up that if I didn't have Jesus in my heart, I was going to hell, and that was a very real thing for me.
Well, then brief them. I mean, tell them what they're likely to hear, and tell them that a lot of people believe that, and tell them why you don't agree. And then, they can go to church. I mean, kids are smarter than you might give them credit for, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do understand that, but I mean, I know how influential other people can be.
Yeah. I would take it as an opportunity to inoculate them.
You could go with them.
Yeah.
You could be there, listen to everything they say, and then answer their questions afterwards if you want. I mean,
Yeah.
Totally up to you. I'm just saying, that's an approach that you might not have thought of yet. So,
Well, I mean, I'm kind of at a wit's end on it. If they want to go and do stuff with other kids, I mean, at the same time, I feel guilty about even considering the subject to those kind of views.
if they're mad at you because they don't get to go, then you have nothing to feel guilty about. You're just granting their wishes. And
Yeah.
I mean, I, as an adult, not being coerced in any way, have been to church with Matt like twice,
Yeah.
and gone all the way to I forget where it was, but it was the Hell House last year.
Oh, yeah.
And had a
All the way up to
crappy
the-
experience,
Yeah.
but went there for the entertainment value, and like we were talking about earlier, we don't want to stay in a bubble, and just went there to see how they're pushing the religious message.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, there's nothing, I mean, they can't really instantly brainwash you or your kids. Maybe in some cases they can, I don't know.
Yeah. I appreciate it, guys.
All right,
Sure. Good luck.
All right, thank you very much.
thanks for calling. Okay, so my internet is completely gone and I can't get it back, and I don't want to keep fiddling with it
Okay.
on TV.
So next we have-
You seem to have it.
We have Paul in El Paso
Okay.
on line 2.
Hello, Paul. We can't hear you at all. I mean, we can hear a faint little bit.
Yeah.
Can you guys fix him? I
Yeah.
don't think he can hear us either.
Doesn't sound like it.
Hey, Paul, stop talking for a second. This isn't working.
Yeah. Okay.
Once again,
All right.
the fun of being in a new studio. Luckily, I brought some material with me to keep us.
Well, I was going
Or you
to comment
did, too.
on the Brian originally had it popped up. He wanted to talk about microchips. And he mentioned microchips.
Yeah.
And that's another interesting thing. I sometimes go over to the Rapture Ready forums because if you want to see some really crazy stuff, go to Rapture Ready
Right.
and take a look at what they're saying. And a lot of them have decided that this flu shot, because the government bought the stocks of the H1N1 and they're distributing it, that it's because it might contain a microchip, and that would be the mark of the beast.
Wow.
So
wait a minute. And they typed this on their computer.
yes.
Okay.
So
I can't figure that one out.
never mind that you can't spray a microchip up your nose without noticing.
They're not that micro. Wow.
All of my pets are chipped. Okay, the chip is about the size of a grain of rice, so you couldn't not notice this thing, and you can't get it through that little tiny needle even in the regular flu shot. So,
Right.
but they've decided.
I'm being told by the studio that the nonprofits is on temporary hiatus until Matt's work situation improves. So, okay, no nonprofits next week, no nonprofits the week after that. Sorry, the show is all you get for a while. So we don't have more callers lined up. Do you have anything that you wanted to talk
I
about?
think that's pretty much. Oh, just a little announcement here about how those of you who've tuned in before, we have a Twitter account. Okay.
Oh, yes. I should
When-
add that to my announcements.
Yes, we do have a Twitter account. It's called Inside the ACA with no spaces between the words. So you can follow us if you like.
Case doesn't matter, right?
It shouldn't matter.
Okay.
But if you can't find it or whatever, sometimes Twitter glitches and you can't get to it, just send us an email at the TV list and we will get you a link to the Twitter account. And the other thing is, no one monitors that when we're doing the show live. We have
Right.
a small number of people who produce this show, and they've got their hands full right now. The producers are doing an excellent job learning the new equipment and keeping us on the air here. So that is not reasonable to expect somebody to monitor that Twitter account. And the other thing is, you'll notice that I'm technically logged into the chat room, but if you're sending me private messages, I don't actually monitor the chat room on there. So
we have no callers lined up, so first of all, I want to make sure that they've got the phone number up there because the screen is once again so tiny that I can't see it.
yeah.
And second, tell our audience that if you are trying hard, I mean, maybe they dropped all callers. Oh, there's one.
Yep, we've got
Okay.
one coming up.
Anyway,
Okay.
Meanwhile, in international news, I'd like to give you two different takes on the same story. One is from the BBC. Scientologists convicted of fraud. A French court has convicted the Church of Scientology of fraud, but stopped short of banning the group from operating in France. Two branches of the group's operations and several of its leaders in France have been fined. The case came after complaints from two women, one of whom said she was manipulated into paying more than 20,000 euros, or about 18,000 pounds, and I don't know the exchange rate from there, in the 1990s, but I bet it's still a lot. A Scientology spokesman told the BBC the verdict was all bark and no bite. France regards Scientology as a sect, not a religion. Prosecutors had asked for the group's French operations to be dissolved and more heavily fined, but a legal loophole prevented any ban. Instead, a Paris judge ordered the church's celebrity center and a bookshop to pay a 600,000 euro fine. Alain Rosenberg, the group's head in France, was handed a 2-year suspended jail sentence and fined 30,000 euros. 3 other leading members of the group were also fined. Now, the other take on this story comes from the Daily Mash, which is a British version of The Onion, I think. Church of Scientology guilty of acting like a church. A French court's decision to fine the Church of Scientology for making outrageous promises based on absolutely nothing last night sent shockwaves of fear through the world's major religions. As the Scientologists were fined £500,000 for claiming eternal happiness was based on handing over a lot of money, and that the human mind is engaged in a constant battle with insane aliens, Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, Hindus, Jews, and Buddhists all began the search for a truly outstanding lawyer. A Vatican spokesman said, if every Catholic that we've lied to about virgin birth, miracles, limbo, and heaven, and we're talking billions here, decides to sue us, we're going to have to sell all the artwork and quite a lot of the gold. It goes on, but I think we've got callers left, so.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Matt's back. He just
Matt's
can't
back.
stand not being on the show. Are you there?
I am here.
All
What's
right.
up?
It wasn't that I couldn't stand it, that you said you didn't have any calls, so
Oh,
I figured
okay.
you were lonely.
All right. Aww.
There were a couple announcements to knock out that I'm not sure you hit or not because I missed the opening of the show. The Texas Free Thought Convention is coming up November 14th in San Antonio.
Did not mention that.
And Dan Barker will be there, as well as a bunch of others, including Vic Stinger, who was here in Austin on Thursday. There was a joint event between ACA and the Center for Inquiry at Opal Lines downtown, which went pretty well. Don recorded it, and I think the current plan is to use the video as a special edition of the Atheist Experience sometime in the future.
Okay.
Other than that, my work has got me working weekends, which is why the nonprofits are on hold. But you and I, Russell, had talked about doing a step-by-step through Ray Comfort's "You can lead an atheist to evidence, but you can't make them think."
Yeah, I don't know about step by step. I just wanted to hit some broad strokes. But yeah, if
Yeah,
you've read that.
Since I'm unable to commit the time to do the live show at the scheduled time, if the two of us can get together over the next few weeks, maybe we can put together some short segments for non-live nonprofits.
Okay, sounds good.
That's about all I have.
All right,
All right.
thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
We got Jeffrick in Toronto, Canada, and we have more free lines, so call on in. Hello, Jeffrick.
Greetings, can you hear me clear? Or is the echo too bad?
Actually, I don't hear any echo at all on this
Yeah.
call.
I'll
What'd you
give
guys do?
responses back in high echo tone.
Oh,
Okay.
well, sorry.
Anyways, did you know that yesterday was the celebration of the anniversary of when Michelangelo had finished the Sistine Chapel and Pope Julius opened it to the public? And the first thing Pope Julius said after he saw the ceiling was, "Michael, I said I want it off-white."
But
That's the
okay.
best I can do.
So is that other part true about Michelangelo?
Anyways, you're still there.
Yes. Are you there?
Sorry about that, but I couldn't resist a bad joke. I heard one.
Okay. Was the other part true about this being the anniversary?
I didn't even hear the last word you just said.
Oh.
I was just trying to help you fill in some time. I think you're doing a great job. I'm a devout atheist here in Canada.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for calling. See you later. Wow. I sure am glad we moved out of Dillahunty International Studios
Oh,
to
yeah.
this professional one.
Yeah. Well, did you happen to see the Keith Olbermann episode the other night? Keith wasn't on. He had, and I forget the name of the guy that co-hosted or that hosted in his
Is
stead.
it Lawrence O'Donnell?
Yeah, I think so.
I love that guy.
Yeah.
He's he used to be a TV writer, and he has a bit part as the lawyer in Big Love.
Ah, okay.
And he's a hilarious political commentator, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Hey, anyway, he ran a story about some preachers, including our beloved Pat Robertson, who's saying that the Halloween candy is possessed.
Oh, yes. Okay, go on.
And so, these sneaky little devils get into the Halloween candy, and these children who think this is an innocuous celebration of whatever, they're actually being exposed to demonic forces through the Halloween candy.
The candy is how they get them, huh?
Yeah.
Does it have microchips?
Well, somebody pointed out that, if the demons were really smart, they wouldn't get into the Halloween candy. They'd wait and get into the Christmas candy.
That's true.
They won't be looking for that.
Yeah, right.
I just lost my mic.
You can see them coming a mile away. But I forgot to mention when we were talking about trick-or-treating earlier that one of the fun activities that we got after trick-or-treating was going through the candy and finding all the ones that had a little Bible sticker taped to them.
Ah.
So we got like a bunch of stuff from Acts, and then we got, what else did we get? First John. I know we got God so loved the world, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And we also, I don't know, we got a bunch of variations on that theme. And none of them really come right out and say, Halloween is an evil holiday and you're being led straight to hell.
Yeah.
They just seem to think that Halloween is a good time to preach. And I guess they should be grateful that they didn't just get, a tract and no candy. Although, one of the lame Bible stickers was attached to goldfish. So, a little bag of goldfish. So it's
so not the individual goldfish.
So it's like, if you're trying to win hearts and souls,
yeah.
Let me give you a tip. Give the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
Anyway.
so I thought that was an interesting segment on there, listening to them rail against Halloween candy.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was the sugar buzz.
Okay.
Now, when you said you were going through the candy, I thought you were going through to find the razor blades.
No, I don't believe in that.
No, that's
Until I
actually,
see evidence of it.
yeah, there's actually never been a case where people hid razor blades in
That's
apples
what I've
and
heard,
stuff.
yeah.
And I guess there were, this is our little foray into critical thinking here. There have been a couple of instances where kids were allegedly poisoned, either with some kind of drug or something,
But then it was
or
like
a poison.
by their own families.
Yeah,
right?
it turned out it wasn't a stranger that gave them the Halloween candy with this stuff in them. It was their own parents
Or
or a relative.
relatives,
Yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, they've never had a case where a kid was poisoned by someone.
okay, yeah, and really, if you're
From
going to
Halloween
reach that
candy.
level of paranoia, you may as well just, lock your kids in the cellar all the time.
Yeah. But see, when you live in a superstitious world, it's a dark and scary place.
Yes, it is. Okay,
And we
Steve
have-
in Orlando, Florida, are you there, and can you hear us okay? Steve? We got Rickrolled.
Oh, we've been rickrolled.
I
Whatever.
love that. I've never actually been Rickrolled before. Since we have no callers, we can explain Rickrolling to our less tech-savvy.
By all means, go ahead.
No, it's kind of lame actually.
It is,
it's
really.
an internet meme where you pretend that there's a video that's like a cool video, and then it goes to this cheesy '80s song. Okay, so let's see. So also in blogging news this week. You know that thread we did a while back where Kent Hovind went to prison for tax fraud?
Yeah.
And it became our thread that wouldn't die because Christians keep stumbling on it
Yeah.
months and years after the fact and saying, oh, you guys are being so horribly mean to poor Kent Hovind.
Yeah.
So we got another message which came in which took a different tact. The person said, hey, I'm an atheist, and I agree that Kent Hovind deserved to go to prison, but it's really mean of you guys to make fun of him. It's, in fact, I think that subjecting the poor guy to ridicule and abuse is worse than going to prison. So it's another case of sort of, dealing with offensiveness that I ran into recently. And I don't know about you. Personally, if somebody gave me the choice of being put in a circle and pointed at and insulted or going to jail for several years for tax fraud, I would take the ridicule.
Yeah, I think we covered that in kindergarten where we learned the sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Yeah. I think people overestimate the seriousness of being mocked. Yes, I understand that words can also hurt, and they do, and, especially for young kids, it's difficult. But, Kent Hovind is a grown-up, and if it were morally wrong to make fun of people who deserve it, then I think Jon Stewart would be the most evil person on the planet.
Yeah, but he's got good ratings and he's funny as hell.
Yeah. And, we only wish we could be
Yeah.
that popular. But I don't know. I feel like making fun of somebody like you mentioned before, anti-vaccination people is healthy, and it's even constructive.
Well, okay, since we're on the anti-vaxxer thing again, this is like a pet peeve. You get the people who refuse vaccination, and then they say, oh, but I'm not eating sugar or cheese or, corn syrup, and, I've cut out milk products, therefore I never get sick, okay?
Right.
Not eating milk, sugar, cheese, whatever thing is not a magic curtain that falls down and protects you from infectious disease, okay?
Yeah.
You can't boost your immune system by taking, some herb or whatever and magically ward off the flu.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to magically ward off the flu, get your flu shot.
Yeah.
Because that will work.
I'm hesitant to read this message from the studio because it would give some indication of how to make the show more annoying to our callers. But apparently we're experiencing sort of the equivalent of a denial of service attack and that's why we're having so many problems keeping calls on the line.
Okay.
But we've now got Brian from Los Angeles on the line. So are you there, Brian?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. I wanted to call to talk about my experience in a Catholic high school growing up.
Uh-huh.
And just the fact that even though it was a Catholic private high school, in our biology class, we were taught the theory of evolution, and it was presented as straight science, no mention of any kind of intelligent designer or anything at all. It was just basically, I think, the kind of science class you would get in a public education setting. And so
It's actually it's probably better than the coverage that evolution.
Education, I know that whenever it gets covered in, like, on your show or in an atheist blog or whatever, it tends to have a very negative connotation, and I just wanted to say that that isn't always the case.
Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, as I recall, the Catholic Church has, I think they came on record a few years ago saying they accepted evolution.
Under Pope John Paul, they did.
Yeah,
under Ratzinger, I think.
Yeah, they backed off of that. Yeah.
Bit. But the Catholics, I think, are much better about teaching the science than some particular strains of Protestant.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is that the Catholics or anyone in a parochial school isn't covered by, for example, in Texas, we've got this huge problem with the State Board of Education and what they're doing to science education here. We've got groups that are trying to prevent them from gutting science education. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing is the parochial schools are not bound by whatever the State Board of Education comes out with in terms of textbooks. So they are actually free to choose really good textbooks, and in some cases I think they do. Now, I don't think that I could stomach the rest of the message there, but I've known some people who've gone to Catholic high schools and even Catholic universities who got an excellent education, including an excellent science education as a result of it. So it's
Catholic schools in general have kind of a good reputation for education, although I don't know if some of that is cherry-picked or what, but I mean, I will... Actually, I'll confess not enough knowledge in this case. So I'm going to say I've heard that they have a good reputation for education.
All right, well, that's really all I wanted to say.
All right,
well... Thanks for the call.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, guys. Enjoy the show.
All right,
okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And just a reminder, the show, we have... 7 minutes
About 7
left?
minutes left,
although
yeah.
in practical sense, like 5 minutes of actual airtime. So after this show is over, everybody should head down to Threadgill's in South Austin and hang out with us, because I, for one, am hungry.
Yeah.
So we got another call getting queued up, but in the meantime, let's see what else we got here. We have a Jewish school. Let's see, Jewish school JFS in Supreme Court to deny it broke law by turning boy away. Sorry, that wasn't a very clear headline. A leading Jewish state school goes to this new Supreme Court today to challenge a ruling that it broke race laws. JFS, formerly, this is in England, by the way. Formerly the Jewish Free School, which is heavily oversubscribed, refused to admit a boy because his mother had converted to the religion at a progressive rather than an Orthodox synagogue. This summer, the Court of Appeals found that the school in Brent, northwest London, had discriminated against the child on racial grounds. The ruling put the court at loggerheads with the Office of the Chief Rabbi, OCR. Is that like an official British thing? Do they have an Office of the Chief Rabbi? Or is this just like a British branch of Jewishness? Boy, I'm really ignorant about this story. I wish I hadn't started reading it. And had serious ramifications for admission to Jewish schools. It also meant faith schools could no longer turn away children who failed the test of ethnicity. Now the school will attempt to reinstate its admissions policy in the Supreme Court at a hearing that is due to last 3 days. Both the school and the parents of the boy, known only as M, are thought to have appointed leading barristers. Okay, now it gets into legalistic stuff.
So now,
Okay, so he was denied access to this Jewish school because it's a Jewish school and he's not properly Jewish by their standards.
and how does one determine proper Jewishness?
Well, I mean, you know, it's a religion, so it's pretty much by fiat. But there is a rule that I think I read in a different story about this had been an issue, which was that you can only be Jewish if your mother is
Yeah,
Jewish.
I was going to say, was his
Or,
mother
I mean,
not?
you know, unless you're converted.
Right.
But I think it was like the father who converted or something like that.
Ah, okay.
So I don't know. I mean, it's really arbitrary, and I say this as a very, very Reformed Jew. Some of the rules they come up with, and you know, it's questionable having a school that is only open to people of a certain faith. Although, I mean, you know, it's not clear to me how public or private this school is supposed to be, and also I have no idea about the church and state laws in Britain.
Yeah, I think they have an official church there, the
Right.
Church of England, but
But
I don't think they care if you're something else.
it reminds me of a story my father told me, a true story about some people he knew, who the father converted to Judaism, and the son wanted to marry a Jewish woman. But the father refused to attend the wedding. He was offended by it because he felt the son was not really Jewish because his mother wasn't.
Ah,
But the story had a happy ending because it turned out that by some similar loophole, the girl wasn't Jewish either,
Ah,
so the father could attend. All right, so we're
Interesting.
almost out of time. You know what? I'm going to roll the dice on this last call. You've got about a minute. Are you there?
Yes.
Say something quickly.
Hi, my name's Cole.
Hi.
Good evening, guys. Just a real quick question. You guys praise to God?
well, I used to be a Christian, so yeah, I have.
I have done experimental prayer to see what happened, and it did not work.
The reason I ask is that I've been a Christian for 10 years, and I've prayed, and I'm just asking yourselves, or callers, viewers, if they pray, give it, 2 months, and it's all about relationship with God.
Okay, so then if they pray and then nothing happens as a result of their prayer, would that be like a point against the existence of God? Would that be evidence that he does not exist?
No, he doesn't
That's
keep
what I
score,
thought.
but he will show up.
Okay,
I think so.
He is an active God. He does live.
got it. Well,
why
I
don't
would
you-
actually like to continue this conversation, and you're welcome to call back next week and remind us of this call. But we are totally out of time, so
Or you can also email us
Yeah.
and tell us why you think God listens.
all right. Thanks for calling, Cole, and thanks, everybody. I see the credits going up, so I don't know if they can still hear me. But goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.